Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. It's going to be special if I don't cough, sneeze, or bleed today. And on the program, we're going to have memories of the living legend himself, the greatest wrestler on God's green earth, Harley Race, plus the Invisible Man returns, pussies on Twitter, and how stupid is a certain segment of the United States of America. Joining me for that and so much more here on the program, I think I can do it this week. I finished my antibiotics. Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the former post office playboy, but Susie's left town, the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, Swammy's Pappy, and a friend to furry woodland creatures, your friend, and especially his, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. What a pleasure it is to be here once again. You cracked me up already at the top. What did you say? The Invisible Man pussies on Twitter.
No, it's two separate segments. The Invisible Man returns, and there are pussies on Twitter. It's two different things.
I can't wait.
Well, I tell you, and I'm feeling a little bit better than I did last week. Everybody knows I've been down with I've heard of Oklahoma crude, but the Oklahoma crud is still in, and Stacy had to go back to the doctor, ear infection, more antibiotics. So the whole house has been, Harley Quinn has been in fine feathered form. She is just a little wiggle butt. She's the only one that didn't get sick. She's got a better immune system.
Will you let her lick your face when you're sick?
Well, I never thought about that. Because actually she does every once in a while attempt to come up and comfort you with some loving licks on your cheek. But dogs don't get respiratory tract infections and shit, do they?
You're asking the wrong guy. I mean,
what do I? You've got Swammy there.
I have Swami. He's a perfectly healthy dog. I don't know anything about his respiratory system, unfortunately. I have some.
Well, haven't you taken?
I have someone I pay. They deal with it, but I don't.
Well, yes, but didn't you take the puppy CPR classes that every puppy parent should participate in?
I didn't even know about the puppy CPR class.
You got to have the little puppy CPR class.
Hold on. You did a puppy CPR class?
Well, I guess now I shouldn't even go any further.
Wait, does that mean you did or you didn't?
What would you do if something happened? And especially, you got to get the puppy Heimlich classes in case they get choked on their little chew sticks. You got to give the puppy Heimlich.
I'm just picturing you in the Cornette face shirt in this little class with all the puppies.
What are you trying to do? Travis Bickle's worked for him already this week. Is that what you're trying to do? No, and you gotta take care of your little babies, your little fur babies, because Harley Quinn is the best cared for puppy on the planet. And that's for the people who think I'm just old and curmudgeonly and just miserable all the time. I have my softer side, but then again, here's something else for all of Twitter pussies that call me old and curmudgeonly and he's just a malcontent and everything on the Twitter machine. How long have you known me? 25 years?
Exactly 25 years, actually almost to the day.
Well, there you go. Well, happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Right? It's been a wonderful ride. You've lasted longer than any of my other relationships. But anyway, am I any more or less curmudgeonly or malcontented or generally grumpy than I was there? I've always been about the same level of curmudgeonly because I never have had a talent for putting up with bullshit.
I would agree. You're pretty much the same now as you were in 1994.
There's not a lot of difference. So it's not just because I'm getting old and the world has passed me by. And actually, that's the real reason is I quit running a long time ago because I didn't want to fucking catch it. But
if anything, the only difference is maybe back then you were a little more amenable to working with different people and just seeing how things work out. Now you're like, I've seen how things work out.
Well, now I've learned. Yeah. As you go along in life, you learn to don't put your fucking hand on that hot stove again. I know I've seen this movie. I know how this is going to turn out. I'm just going to say fuck you now and save myself a lot of fucking aggravation.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's not because I'm old. It's just because I've never had a talent for dealing and putting up with bullshit. Anyway, speaking of, well, this is probably not a great segue. Speaking of bullshit, my last public personal appearance that is scheduled, it's not going to be bullshit. We're going to have a fine time. We're leaving there in the morning, leaving for there in the morning as we record this program now. This weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina, The Gathering from TmartPromotions.com. So many great legends of the Mid-Atlantic area and all over the wrestling world, along with some of the finest stars of modern day. Kurt Angle's going to be there, for heaven's sake. We got some headline attractions. The Midnight Express and I, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Stan Lane, and Randy Rose going to be there. Going to be honored at the banquet on Friday night. We're going to have a fine time. Hopefully, I will spend some money on some great wrestling collectibles for the vault. But anyway, see me in Charlotte if you want to see me out in public for the next year with maybe a couple of pop-ups here and there. Well, that's what they call them, the pop-up store, the pop-up sale, whatever the fuck.
Wrestle Kingdom.
A flash mob. You won't see me at Wrestle Kingdom unless they have it within 400 miles of Louisville, Kentucky. I'll guarantee you that.
That may be a problem, yeah.
May be a problem. But anyway, so this weekend, come see us in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then from now on, we can just meet like this over the airwaves every week. Because I've got other things going on, including, of course, the thing I said, this is what was keeping me going last week. It's still keeping me going this week. I've read it 14 times. Behind the Curtain, Real Pro Wrestling Stories is finally done, printed, and is about to go on sale. Tuesday, August 20th, the latest collector's item from Jim Cornette himself, the soft cover edition, folks. You can pre-order it now online. It'll be available on Tuesday, August 20th online and everywhere that fine books are sold. If some comic shop or Barnes & Noble or some Outlaw Mud Show bookstore in your neck of the woods does not carry this fine publication, cut a promo on them until they do and tell them to call the folks at IDW Publishing and IDW Limited, and they will fix them right up. But at JimCornette.com for you special cult members, I got a treat. I got a deal. We mentioned this last week. A limited hardcover edition. Now, the Kickstarter folks, they got the hardcovers, the first edition. They got the lithographs. They got drawn in as characters in the book. They got some other things I still got to get to you folks, including phone calls. But they got the good stuff. Everybody else in the world is going to have a shot at the softcover edition, but only at JimCornette.com can you get a limited edition hardcover, signed and numbered, one of 1,500. There's only 1,500 copies of this print run that I've specially orchestrated for the cult of Cornette. And once they're gone, they're gone. No more are going to be printed. I mentioned there's 5,000 Midnight Express books out there in the world, and you know how much they're worth these days. Well, there's only going to be 1,500 of this bad boy. And if you go to JimCornette.com on Tuesday, August 20th, or anytime thereafter, you can purchase it for the low price, $39.95. Hardcover edition, full color, slick paper, graphic novel, not only with stories about Ric Flair's plane crash, the Montreal Screwjob, Sputnik Monroe in Memphis, Dr. Jerry Graham and the Graham Brothers, The Sheik, Lawler versus Kaufman, the Fabulous Fargos, and more, plus my exclusive pictures of the Lawler-Kaufman match, newspaper reports verifying these true tales, and a poster featuring my all-time dream card, if I could have a time machine and get anybody I wanted. I've booked a mega spectacular, and also a fine glossary of wrestling terminology with the meanings behind the words and how they're supposed to be used, so all of you folks don't have to look at these pussies on Twitter and imitate what they do because they misspeak constantly because they don't know what they're talking about. It's the real way the words are used. First time ever. $39.95 plus shipping. I can't go into my pocket and mail this to you folks. And that's available at JimCornette.com on Tuesday the 20th. And I've got to get you yours. I know. I'm trying to make sure that all the orders at Cornette's Collectibles are taken care of, which we've got nipped in the bud. And Brian, you're next on the Behind the Curtain list. And I'm only charging you half price.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, I had no expectation of you actually sending one, so I already got one. I bought one through the Kickstarter.
Well, what? See, now you make not only make me feel bad, but you make all the people think I'm a fucking ass.
You can send it with my burger towel.
I forgot to send you a burger towel, didn't I? All right, hold on. Wait a minute.
No, it's quite all right. You can wrap it in the burger towel. It'll keep it safe.
All right, hold on. Well, yes. And hold on. Let me just get a pen here. I'm trying to find a send Brian Last. Wait a minute. I'm writing. Send Brian Last behind the curtain and a burger towel. Okay.
The burger towel will be the curtain that the book will be behind.
That it will be pulled back for you, and you'll have an exclusive guide.
Well, thank you.
Going behind the curtain. Anyway, all right. Real quick, an update. I not only talked to Randy Hales, but I talked to Eddie Marlin as we record this. It was yesterday, Tuesday, what was it, the 13th, 14th?
13th.
Tuesday the 13th was Eddie Marlin's 89th birthday. And we talked about it. I went down and visited him last fall when I went and did the NWA event in Nashville and got a chance to sit with Eddie and Randy for a while. And I mentioned on the program how he told a bunch of old wrestling stories. And, Eddie literally started in wrestling at the same time as television became a thing. And in the late 90s, right as the Memphis territory closed up, was still heavily involved and was a promoter and was the on-air authority figure. He had a 50-year career in wrestling. And over the last 20 years, obviously, has been retired, but still, just an amazing resource for time and history that, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of that. And it was great to be able to talk to him. Eddie's had numerous health issues over the last, I guess, month or 6 weeks, and he's been in and out of the hospital. And they've announced that they're moving him to hospice care. And yesterday when I talked to Randy, he might get mad at me, but I'm going to tell a story here in a minute of just how tough Eddie Marlin is. But, Eddie wasn't really able to speak too well because of the tubes and the apparatus and everything. But Randy put me on speaker. I said, "Hey, Eddie," I said, "Tommy Gilbert's tired of selling. He's ready to make the hot tag. Are you ready?" And Randy, he beamed from ear to ear. He is still there and still sharp. And it was just a few days ago, and if Randy gets mad at me for telling his story, I don't care, because it's Eddie Marlin. Eddie's just turned 89. This was over the weekend, so just before his 89th birthday. He's been in and out of the hospital. He's had, unfortunately, multiple organ failures of various kinds, and, you can imagine. But Randy's like a second son to him. He got Randy into business when Randy was 14 down in Jonesboro, and so anyway, and just the kind of not only tough bastard, but loyal guy Eddie Marlin was, Randy stepped out of the hospital room to make a phone call or do something. And another family member of Eddie's was in the room with him, but Randy wasn't. And in the room next door to him, apparently some guy was having a freak out of something. He was cussing and yelling some other patient they had brought in for some issue. And Eddie thought that Randy was in trouble and pulled his IV out and started trying to take his oxygen mask off and throwing his leg over the side of the bed like he was going to get up and go to help. Wow. Because he thought Randy was in trouble. And that, the doctor came in last week and said, "Mr. Marlin, you are the toughest human being that I have ever encountered in my years of practicing medicine." Because every time they were ready to write him off over the last 6 weeks, he made a comeback and he left the hospital and he went back to, his rehab center. He went back, whatever. And so I just wanted to say it was Eddie's birthday yesterday. And I think everybody should, just think about the history that we're losing with some of these guys when the business was what it was meant to be. And remember that Eddie Marlin was a big deal for a long time to a lot of people. Still to this day, if you go to a wrestling show in Tennessee or Kentucky or anywhere in this area, and you mention a name like Eddie Marlin or Jackie Fargo or Tojo Yamamoto or Jerry Jarrett, everybody remembers, because not only did they see these people in person, but if they weren't old enough, their parents or their grandparents told them about them. It meant more to them than just, do you think anybody's going to be talking about whoever the hot outlaw guy is right now in 6 months, let alone 60 years? But, these guys, they were local icons in the area or the town or the community or whatever. And I think, we're losing that generation. And it's sad because that was when wrestlers were actually part of the fabric of the country instead of just some, niche fucking high school drama class fucking play. So anyway, Eddie Marlin turned 89 years old. And what a fucking career he's had.
It seems like the Tennessee territory is one of the places, I guess maybe Hawaii also, that the regulars, the guys who worked there a long time, seems like a bunch of those guys ended up living a long, long time. I think Hawaii at one point had a bunch of guys who were all in their 90s.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, maybe it goes back to like what Dutch Mantell said one time when Jerry Jarrett announced they were going to be in the early 90s, they were going to be working with the WWF. And he said, if any of you boys are on steroids, they're going to test. You better get off of them. And Dutch said, hell, Jerry, the way you're paying us, we ain't even on food. But no, those the guys in Hawaii, they weren't fucking on the sauce, as they say. They weren't on steroids. Guys in Tennessee, it was about talent and personality. The guys in Tennessee through the Fargo years, they had a sociable cocktail after the matches, and then in modern days they burned their recreation more than they drank it. But the Carolinas had a lot of guys. Also, that generation, it's only for the modern era of guys that became big in the 80s that the fans got used to them dying at an early age. Because the guys that were stars in the 50s, 60s, and 70s are actually now all just passing away. Because they didn't have all these goofy extracurricular habits that some people have taken up over the last 20 or 25 years, maybe 30 years. Just my thoughts on the matter. Anyway, you know what else I'm thinking?
What's that?
I'm thinking that our fine friends at Raycon have saved my life on a couple of occasions.
What do you mean?
Because, everybody knows I don't do wireless stuff. I barely trust the wired stuff. But Raycon has these wireless earbuds now. They don't even call them headphones anymore. They call them earbuds because they're not like the big clunky headphones. They're little buds that go in your ear. And you vouched for them. You said that they were wonderful because you're a person who uses the modern technology. And what's more, Stacy loves this shit. She syncs it up to her phone. She syncs it up to her car. She syncs her car up to her phone. All of Stacy's possessions talk to each other. They're all having conversations all the time. But they've saved my life on a couple of occasions because she's had those earbuds in when I was grumpy and said some things that probably shouldn't have been heard. And she couldn't hear them because she was enjoying fine, clear, crisp music courtesy of the Raycon E50 wireless earbuds, which have totally changed the game for everybody that uses earbuds.
Not just good for music, good for podcasts.
Good for podcast. Yeah, I would sound even like I'm not even sick right now if you were listening to this podcast, ladies and gentlemen, on wireless earbuds, the Raycon E50s. They start at half the price of the other premium wireless earbuds on the market. They send you all these different sizes. So whether you got a little bitty teeny ear or whether you got a big, giant, massive cauliflower ear or whatever in between, you can stick these things right in the hole, and it's the same size as the hole. So you block out the outside noise. You hear the shit clear and crisp. It's all wireless, so you don't tie yourself down to things or yank your head off or whatever. And I understand they're stylish too. I know little about style, but I understand they're very stylish. Do you have anything further to add?
I understand they're very stylish too. They have various colors. They come in various different colors, so you can match them with your stylish clothing.
I don't have any of that either, but you do. You're a guy who dresses stylishly and takes care of himself, and you probably work out every once in a while. Meanwhile, I just don't give a shit, but it's all right. But anyway, as usual, we can save the Cult of Cornette members some money here. If you go to buyraycon.com, that's B-U-Y, buyraycon.com /JCE, you get 15% off. Did somebody say they gave them 20%? They may even be giving you more than what we're telling you.
I think it was 20% last time.
Yeah, they tell us 15, but they get 20. You never know how much money you're going to save. Buyraycon.com /JCE to get at least 15% off your. If you've been eyeing these things, don't pay retail for fuck's sake, because you know a guy. Me, my name and reputation allows all this stuff to happen. The celebrities are all over them. They gave me a list of celebrities that already own these and are obsessed with them, and the two names that I recognized were Snoop Dogg and Melissa Etheridge. But I'm sure some people that I've heard of are enjoying these also.
Barbara, Julio, Frank.
Wait a minute. Who the fuck is Julio? Who the fuck is Julio? Me and Julio down by the schoolyard? Fuck it. I have Barbara Streisand, Frank Sinatra. I get that. But Julio?
Julio Iglesias.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, all right. I stole
that from the great movie Body Slam, and I cracked myself up with it. Hey, by the way, can I say one thing?
I don't remember if I ever saw Body Slam. Have we finished this plug yet? Buyraycon.com /JCE, and you'll save some money.
Well, what I was going to say is Raycon has lots of cool colors. They have a blue one with a blue trim around the black earbud. That's really cool, and I think I may have to get that and have two pairs.
Well, that would be good, but then, I've got the office painted blue because it's a calming color. It didn't work, but I like the blue.
Buy your own pair. You can get one too. I'm not precluding you from getting one.
Well, no, I didn't say that. I'm just saying blue is a good choice because my office is blue.
Oh, see, so I want to get it. I like it. It's blue. You're like, yeah, it would fit in really good over here.
No, I didn't say it would fit in. Now, you're just, don't try to swerve these people's minds around with your patter here. I didn't say it would fit in good with my office. I said I was trying to put over your color choice, for fuck's sake. I'm going to blow my nose over here. You just talk amongst yourselves.
Well, speaking of things that blow, let me tell you what's going on this week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Of course, some great programming coming at you. Want to mention the Super Studcast, available for patrons of the Studcast at patreon.com /Studcast. Our guest, the Universal Heartthrob, Austin Idol. This is filled with a lot of fun, a lot of jokes, a lot of hilarity, as well as some serious stuff. Idol goes into detail about his plane crash, which I think is the very first time Ron has had an opportunity to listen to the story and ask questions about it. You got to hear this. Once again, patreon.com /Studcast. Also want to make mention of Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, with John Arezzi. And this week we have a best of episode. We're going to give you a little bit of a spotlight on what's coming ahead in the weeks ahead, because we are, of course, in 1989. We're going to look at November of 1991. This is an interesting period of time. Paulie dangerously sent home from WCW. Eddie Gilbert blamed, and he comes on the air to fire back at Lawler and Jarrett and Hurd and Jim Ross and WCW and everyone else. This is explosive stuff. Also, Paulie's
by the way, I'm back from blowing, and a lot of people are probably going to think, he just went to get something. I really blew my nose, folks. I've heard a clip of Eddie talking about Jim Hurd, and a truer assessment has never been stated. So I can vouch for this program personally.
You can hear that, plus Paulie Dangerously's press conference with his attorney at the China Club to address all this, which is just the epitome of a Paulie Dangerously scenario from the early 90s.
That's the same place. Should I tell the Jack Nicholson story again real quick, just for the new listeners? So I don't mean to interrupt your plugs, but goddamn it, this is so fucking Paul. Paulie comes into fucking Atlanta TV one night when we're still at the studio in Techwood. We're doing the midnight angle, right? He's just been there a month or so. And everybody knew that in between TVs, he flew back home to New York. And Paulie was always making it known. He had the Studio 54 when that was a hot thing. That's where he had like Bam Bam Bigelow's debut match, and he had press conferences. Well, now it's the China Club. This was the hot place then. And he always tells people he goes to the China Club, right, when he's in New York. And he comes in, and I came in. He's already there because I'm carrying my bags, and he rushes over to me. He won't let me set my bags down. He says, Jim, guess where I was this weekend? I said, I don't know, Paul. Where were you? I was at the China Club. Really? Well, that's not out of place. I said, oh, goodies. Guess who I saw there? I said, I wouldn't have any idea, Paul. Jack Nicholson. I said, okay, New York City, China Club's hot nightclub. I can believe Jack. I'll buy this, right? Well, there you go, Paul. Guess what he said to me? I said, oh, now wait a minute. Now he spoke to you. Okay, Paul, when you saw Jack Nicholson at the China Club, what did he say to you? And he said, he put his, and it helps that Paulie did the great Jack Nicholson back then before he turned into Alfred Hitchcock. He said, here's what he did. Apparently Jack Nicholson saw Paulie dangerously in 1989 or early 1990 at the China Club in New York City, came up to Paul, put his arm around Paul and said, hey, kid, watch the tennis racket. I don't now, God damn it. All right, now, you had me with I was in New York and I went to the China Club. I can buy that. And you had me with you saw Jack Nicholson. And then you say, and guess what he said to me? And I'm like, okay, well, maybe, he could have said, hey, kid, get out of my way. I'm working here or something or other. He could have spoken. But now, Paul, you're trying to make me believe that Jack Nicholson is a fan of our angle and is watching World Championship Wrestling on Saturday nights. He said, I swear on my father's life. Oh, God, no. Oh, no. Now I've got to make a mental choice as to whether Jack Nicholson is a fan of our angle or you don't care whether your father dies or not. I never did find out whether Nicholson was into us, though. We never did get corroboration on anything. He's never been a guest host on Raw, has he?
No.
You would think if Jack Nicholson was into the angle between me and Paulie Dangerously at some point, the WWE would have picked up on this and got him on Raw.
Did you meet Burt Reynolds? He was apparently a big fan.
Yeah, I didn't care.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You got a problem with Burt Reynolds?
Well, no, it just,
What the fuck? That was a weird reaction.
Well, no, it's just that all the celebrities, I mean, I was standing there with Pamela Anderson was on fucking Neptune in the, 2 feet off the fucking ground floating, when she was watching the monitor at one of those pay-per-views or whatever, or some other celebrity they'd bring. Most of the celebrities that they brought in at that point in time, I really could give two shits and a tickle about. And then the one time Bruce told me this is before I came, they almost made an offer or some way or another. Joe Walsh was willing to play the national anthem at one of their pay-per-views. And Vince said, who?
Oh, come on.
No, I'm serious. And they didn't do it. This was 25 years ago or however long, but yes. Now that I would have fucking loved. Hey, yes, sir. But Joe Walsh, for fuck's sake, life's been good. Whatever but Burt Reynolds. And then I didn't want to say that because Burt Reynolds actually was messing around with Barry Windham's girlfriend, Pam, after they broke up.
You know what? I forgot about that.
I saw her on some of those celebrity shots in the magazines.
Wasn't this, was she actually married to Barry or were they just fooling around?
I don't know that they ever got, well, now don't put it like that. Like they were crazy kids and they were in love. I don't know.
And then she ran over Burt Reynolds?
I don't know if she ran off with him. Last time I saw her, she was with Barry, and then I see pictures of her in the magazine. She's with Burt Reynolds, but she wore a dress so tight.
It's a good career move.
To the NWA meeting in, I think it was St. Martin in 87. That I swear to God, she couldn't sit down. She had to stand up all night. The dress was so tight, she could not bend or sit. And it was amazing, little piece of structural engineering.
We'll hear more great structural engineering from Paulie Dangerously and Eddie Gilbert on this week's Best Stuff from 1991 Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now at pwspod.com or available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. And, of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership! Yeah, a little bit of the old-fashioned Cornette yelp into the The newfangled. Now you're into technology all of a sudden. In this area, all of a sudden you've embraced technology.
Well, this runs on fucking AAA batteries, so I can figure that out.
All right, good enough. I want to thank everyone for checking out the Harley Race special and encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. We have audio from not just guys we've talked to in the last week, but also from the Arcadian Vanguard and 605 archives. Here, Tommy Rich, Ron Fuller, the Grappler Len Denton, Jim Cornette, George Shire, and so many more. Check this out today. We try to cover every single area of his career in as great a detail as we could in a week turnaround or whatever the hell it was. You hear that? And episode 100 is on the way. It is going to be a fucking monster. Check out more at 605pod.com or available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership!
Have a cigar. It's going to be a monster if we all pull together as a team.
Great
anyway.
Song. Great. One of their best songs.
I have a couple of programming plugs myself, and I'm not even getting paid for this. This is just a favor from me to thou. Watch the Food That Built America miniseries on the History Channel. It's amazing. I was watching some of it last night, and now I've got to go back and binge watch, as they say, the whole thing. But there's like 4 episodes, 2 hours each, and it gives you a history with reenactments and etc. of the history of basically packaged food sales in America and how they got started during the Industrial Revolution and etc. and the Kellogg's of the world and the origin of you would not believe that the origin of cereal was so fascinating. And I won't even tell you how it happened. You'll have to watch this series. But The Food That Built America on the History Channel.
Is there a French toast episode?
Well, I didn't see the last one. I don't know whether they got that far or not. But they go all the way up through McDonald's and Ray Kroc and everything. And Colonel Sanders, they even show Colonel Sanders shooting the fucking rival gas station guy and everything. And so it's fascinating. And also, I ought to know better, but I'm going to stick my neck out for somebody and praise him again, a modern wrestling personality, because I don't think this person is going to be bumping around for the Invisible Man anytime soon. Last Saturday night's MLW program, I'm keeping an eye on them because obviously I may be pressed into service again in the future on commentary. But Selena De La Renta had a live interview in the ring with Conan, and if you want to know, young cosplay wrestlers, how this shit is really done on a verbal level, watch this. I mean, it's no secret Conan knows what he's doing and on the microphone, and that's been his thing. He's a fucking promo guy. But here's Selena De La Renta, 22 years old, and hangs with him every step of the way. And not just... You could tell it wasn't two people reciting some flowery prose that some writer has thought, or even they have thought is going to be witty and, witty banter and sparkling repartee. It was two real people having a fucking argument. And their body language and their inflection and their demeanor, as Howard Finkel would say, matched that. Up to when Conan comes out to the ring and interrupts Selena, and she has to hand him the microphone, which is sometimes an awkward moment where, okay, yeah, now you're going to say horrible things about me and I'm going to let you. Here's the mic. She takes the microphone between her thumb and forefinger and holds it upside down and makes a face and holds it out at him like she's trying to pick up a turd by the clean end, right? Just everything. It's instinct. It's instinct and it's timing and it's knowing what you're doing instead of trying to be something you're not, or trying to make wrestling something it's not. It's two people having an argument. It was very good. And I'm crossing my fingers that Selena De La Renta is not bumping around on Twitter for the Invisible Man next week. I feel like this is my last chance to like somebody in the modern fucking era that won't let me down. But she's fantastic. And if any of those cosplay wrestlers that the poor old billionaire has been signing up could talk like this, they might have a fucking wet farts chance in a fucking swimming pool of making a dent in the ratings on TNT after 4 weeks. But we will see. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Harley Race. You've already done your show about him. You beat me to it. But it not to chew everybody else's food or go into all the stories that everybody else has told. But the first time that I saw Harley Race was on the magazine covers, right? This was back before you could actually ever see a wrestler wrestle unless he came to your territory or appeared on the local TV show, right? So I'd seen him on the magazine covers. And think about this. This is something that most people don't think about anymore. Is there a wrestler that you give a shit about now in the world, anywhere in the world, that you have seen a picture of and said, okay, I'd like to see him wrestle, and not been able to?
No.
Not been able to see him. Anything, any tape, any film, anything at all.
Of a current person? No.
No. But that's part of what the mystique was, and part of why these guys were able to be over by the time they came to town, because the wrestling magazines that were sold everywhere, and it's to the most diehard fans. But since the magazines, that's why Bruno had a part of why he had such a mystique, because he was always on the cover, because they sold more magazines in New York and the Northeast, because that's where the population was. And they always had Georgia guys on the cover because of the TBS television in the late 70s, early 80s. But Harley Race was one of those guys where you, especially even if you could get other areas television, a lot of times you wouldn't be able to see Harley wrestle, because since he was the champion, they never let the champion wrestle on television. So I had been seeing him on magazine covers since 1973 when I discovered wrestling magazines. And, he's been the NWA champion. He's the guy that beat Dory Funk Jr. and lost it to Jack Briscoe. And then about, what was it, 75 or December 75? Or when was the switch from Briscoe to Terry?
December 75, yeah.
Okay. December 75, Terry wins it. That was the first time I'd actually gotten to see Terry, because they showed the tape. They sent the tape around the last few minutes of the match to all the NWA territories. They showed that, and the same thing happened then in February of 77, when Harley beats Terry in Toronto. They sent that tape around because they wanted to alert people of the title change. So the first time that I actually got to see Harley Race wrestling, even though it was on tape after hearing about him for 4 years, was on the tape of him beating Funk in Toronto. And to be honest, the last 4 or 5, they probably only showed the last 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't the most exciting match in the history of the world of wrestling, right? Especially when I'm seeing chaos every Tuesday night at Louisville Gardens. So I was still kind of like, well, now I'm conflicted. But there had not been an NWA championship match in Louisville since 1975. Jack Briscoe defended against Ron Fuller in January. It was the last NWA title match we had. We never got Terry in 76. They did it in Memphis, but not in Louisville. But now that there's a new NWA champion, Nick, this was right at the time of the split between Nick and Jarrett, but Nick had already booked the NWA champion for a week in Memphis and Louisville, and I think Chattanooga, and I'm pretty sure Nashville, and wherever the fuck, the major towns in the territory. And so I got to see him live in March against Rocky Johnson. And I'm thinking, okay, now I get, and then you got Harley when you got to see him live. Because it was the aura from the time he walked out and the way he built a match. And Harley called all those fucking matches. If he had a match when he was the NWA World Champion, he was fucking calling it. And he worked not only a hard style, and he took the big bumps, but he did it at the right times. But he did the certain deliberate, this is real. The other shit on the card may be phony, but everything here is going to mean something and make sense and look good. And he called matches for guys based on, what they could do. Like he worked with Rocky Johnson. So, of course, he's going to backdrop him, and Rocky's going to land on his feet and hit the 3 drop kicks in a row. That's part of Rocky's thing. But at the same time, he got the best out of everybody. because my notes that night say this is the best Rocky Johnson match I've ever seen. You know, I've seen him for 6 months, but it's the best one I've ever seen. and then when I saw him against Tommy Rich in Atlanta a few years later, it was one of the better Tommy Rich matches I saw. And Harley had that NWA World Championship style match down. And whether it was an hour or whether it was 20 minutes or whether it was anything in between or whatever it was, he kept the pace up. He kept the people interested, but he got the most out of the babyface challenger to where you basically at the end thought this local babyface got screwed. If he'd have had 5 more minutes, or if he'd had, you know, if he just hadn't fucking pulled those tights or whatever, he'd be the new world champion. That's the way you were supposed to do it. And Harley was that's why he was on top for so long. He wasn't the most exciting wrestler in the world. He made your local guy look bigger and better and more exciting than anybody else did. Does that make sense to people who may not have experienced that kind of thing and it doesn't really matter anymore?
I would hope so.
But, you know, and then the bumps, but then the main thing was I'd seen him live. He worked with Rocky in Louisville. Then the first card that Jarrett presented at the Mid-South Coliseum when he had dispatched Nick Goulas in 6 weeks, it was the return match, Harley and Rocky Johnson on top. I wanted to see Harley and Lawler, but they were smarter than I was, thankfully, back then, the bookers and the promoters. Harley wasn't going to do the fucking job, and Jerry Jarrett did not want Jerry Lawler to do a job on the very first card that he presented as a promoter at the Mid-South Coliseum. So he brought in Jack Briscoe to challenge Lawler for the Southern Heavyweight title, and Lawler beat Briscoe, and then Harley Race, with, I believe, a roll-up and a pull of the trunks, as I recall, 42 years ago, beat Rocky Johnson and made him look fantastic in doing it. So it was a win-win. And then they milked the title match with Lawler until that December, where they got Harley in for 2 weeks in a row. And the first week was a 60-minute Broadway time limit draw. And then the second week, they came back with the 90-minute time limit. So everybody's like, okay, Lawler was on the verge of it. He had him covered last week. This time, there's no way that, you know, they're going 90 minutes. Lawler's going to win. And that's when Jimmy Valiant came in, ran in when the referee was down and broke the beer bottle over Lawler's head. And he fucking gigged himself everywhere. He went to the hospital with stitches. They reported it in the newspaper that wrestler Jimmy Valiant stabbed Jerry Lawler. And he had stitches in his chest to fucking prove it, and cost him the World Heavyweight Championship. So that was Lawler's out. Harley disappeared in the aftermath, which was his fucking job. And it was all on Jimmy Valiant's a fucking Raven Maniac. And that was then the program for the next 4 months. Lawler and Valiant basically main evented 16 or 17 out of the next 20 weeks in Louisville and Memphis and Evansville and everywhere, with the program that wouldn't die because it kept drawing. So the world champion came in, had a great fucking match, then sold tickets for a return, and then was the catalyst. You cost me my world title for the blood feud between Lawler and Valiant, and then the world champion can go away for a while. But the 60-minute draw, it was the first, actually it wasn't the first wrestling music video. That was a thing Lawler put together a few years before when he was challenging Briscoe, and they had his Bad News single in the background. But they couldn't show the 60-minute draw on television in its entirety, so they edited a music video, and this is 5 years before MTV went on the air. And, you know, we'd seen the Bohemian Rhapsody video, right? So we kind of got the concept. But the wrestling highlights of this match, with Harley Race taking all those fucking bumps, set to a live version of I'm a Man by Chicago. And I still get goosebumps. When I saw that thing, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Wrestling set to fucking rock and roll, you know, on video. But there was no VCRs. And this was December of 77. So that fucking video stuck in my mind until one day, for absolutely no reason other than they ran 3 minutes short on the out-of-town tape and needed to fill some time. They played that video again 3 years later after I'd got my VCR. And when I heard the first beat of the music and I saw the first frame, I fucking popped up to my feet. I'm like, I'm getting this on fucking tape. And I swear to God, it's on YouTube. You can find it. Harley Race and Jerry Lawler. I'm a man. But to have that on tape, I watched that thing 100 fucking times because at that point, I was getting smarter than I was when I first saw Harley live. And I realized that by watching him take these fucking bumps, you can learn how to work if you've got the eye for it. Harley's bumps were always perfect. They were wild all over the place, backwards over the top rope and this and that, the big backdrops, whatever, but they were perfect. When he got body slammed and he'd go up higher than anybody else. And with that body and that body weight and that fucking physique, or when he'd take a backdrop and he'd get backdropped higher than anybody else, he would always land perfect. Every piece, every inch of his body from his shoulders to his hips, and then the flat of his feet would land at the same time. Bam! Kids in wrestling school, if you take a bump and it goes clunk, clunk, you've fucked up. If you take a bump and it goes bam, you've done it right because you hit everywhere at the same time. You disperse the fucking shock. If Harley got taken over in a headlock takeover, he would fucking throw his body. He would push off with his left foot and he would throw his right leg straight up in the air. So that way his body had to follow and he would land perfectly on the other side and over his opponent. He wouldn't get flummoxed up in the guy's feet. When he had the double knockout and he would go backwards over the top rope, or when he'd get shot corner to corner and he'd do the same thing backwards over the top rope, he hit it perfectly the same way every time. Now, when you only got to see him once or twice a year, or maybe in the big territories 4 or 5 times a year, this wouldn't get old and you couldn't see through it. But when I had the ability to watch that videotape over and over, I could see that this guy was an incredible fucking worker and was always in control of himself. He would take a full body slam on an unpadded concrete floor and you would hear him hit. And you would say, my God, that's real. That has to be real. And it was, once again, it was because he was the toughest human being in the history of the planet, but also because he dispersed that shock so flat that, other people would cripple themselves doing what he did. He ended up crippling himself doing what he did. And this was in the late 70s, early 80s, when he was in the 60s, when he and Larry Hennig were a team. He was the bump machine. He was doing all this shit and at a fucking higher speed and with even more virgin territory because people had not seen anything like this. And he did it so well and so believably that fucking the knee drop to the prefrontal lobe, that there's a fucking cunt hair's worth of play in that before it becomes a goddamn prefrontal lobotomy, right? But he had the eye for it. And everything looked good and looked solid. And it just, he was a prodigy for that type of thing. And it's underappreciated even by a lot of the guys, I think, that, that looked up to him. They didn't realize just how groundbreaking and revolutionary he was and how good he was. And everybody knew how tough he was. But it was just, nobody worked like that. A lot of people try to now because they copied Harley, but before Harley Race, nobody worked like that. Just my opinion.
Yeah, it's sad that there's no footage of him and Larry Hennig.
Oh, and can you imagine when he was 10 or 12 years younger than he was in the late 70s and doing all that shit? And this was, and I mean, everybody's read the bio. He had a horrible car wreck that killed his wife and their baby son, or no, she was pregnant. The kid hadn't even been born. And they wanted to cut his leg off. And Gus Karras said, no, fuck you. I'm taking him back to Kansas City, and saved his career. He'd been in boat wrecks. He was stabbed the time that who was it? Those guys were they knocking over the diner or fucking with some woman?
In Minneapolis at a diner, he was sitting there after the matches by himself. And I think it was like 2 or 3 guys were messing with a woman. He told them to leave her alone. And they said, like, hey, mind your own business. And he just walked right over to them. They pulled a knife. He kept walking. And I think he knocked out one. And then he got
he knocked out one and then realized that the other one had stabbed him from behind, is the way I heard it, and then turned around and fucked him up too. But anyway, and I'll tell you, when he was a manager in WCW, when they brought him in, so he worked with Luger and Vader. Has anybody told you what he carried around in his pocket of his suit?
He had a taser, right?
The stun gun.
The stun gun.
Right? Because it wasn't a taser then. They called them stun guns. I don't know the terminology, but the taser gimmick that the cops have now shoots prongs out, and it has a wire that transfers the electricity, right?
It wasn't that.
It was the old. It was a cattle shocker thing.
Yeah.
Is it like it's handheld? It looks like one of the old cell phones. Is about that size, maybe even smaller. And when you press the button with your thumb on the side, you can see the two terminals on top. The arc of electricity would jump from one to the other. And if you zap somebody with that, it was like a fucking stun gun or like a cattle prodder thing. And he had it and he'd come out with it in the locker room and start chasing guys around with it. And he'd be zapping it, zap, 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 and it'd be close to you, right? And everybody was fucking running and putting him over, because it wasn't that Harley was wanting to hurt anybody on purpose or, be a fucking, he was ribbing. To Harley Race is a rib if you fucking got hit with the fucking stun gun. Oh, the hell, yeah, because it wouldn't bother him. And, he came from the fucking generation like, Don Fargo and Ray Stevens, those guys. Well, you shot me in the leg, but it was only a 22, so good rib. What the fuck? He's fucking, the Steiners would run from Harley Race when he had that fucking stun gun with him. But a completely different mindset. And once again, if guys just had the level of respect for the business as guys like that, and when he blew Vince off, when he tried to bribe him into no-show in Starrcade and coming to the WWF with the belt, he said, "No, I've got to look at myself in the fucking mirror." It wasn't just
and then
just
about
about
to tackle him.
Well, yeah, that
the funniest part of the story. What is he thinking?
I don't know. I wasn't there. He lost his mind for a second. Harley didn't hurt him, but he sure didn't put it over. But guys had a lot more respect for the business instead of just their business in a lot of cases back then. And then, in Harley, he'd been a promoter. He owned part of Kansas City. He'd been the champion, the highest paid wrestler in the business, him and Bruno. He had respect for the guys that he had done business with all those years, and he wasn't just going to fuck them. And that's the one thing that Vince McMahon, well, it's just business, pal. Sometimes it's more than that. Anyway, and everybody should listen to your Harley show also. But I just wanted to bring those few things up.
We go into detail about some of the stories you just mentioned, but also the other thing is just inside the ring, but also outside of the ring. You don't see guys carry themselves the way he carried himself. It's hard to explain, but when I was around him when he came up, I remember for one of the Eddie Gilbert Memorial shows that Dennis did, he still carried himself like world champion Harley Race. He was methodical, like just walking through the hotel lobby.
Yeah.
So, you don't see anyone carry themselves like that anymore, though.
And he wasn't loud. He didn't call attention to himself, but you knew he was there, and nobody wanted to fuck with him. That's, and once again, that's when Andre lets you slam him right on the floor. That Houston clip went around the world twice here a couple weeks ago. That's the kind of respect he had from everybody, and nobody was going to fuck with him except Don the Lawman Slatton. We've told that story before, but that didn't end well for him either. Most of the time, if you fucked with Harley Race, it did not end well for you.
And he looks so tough. I mean, in an era before every single fucking guy goes out and gets a tattoo, like when they turn 21 or whatever the fuck happens now. He had tattoos, and they were like in places where, his forearm. Who gets a tattoo in the middle of their forearm? Like him and Mae Young. Like he looked like a badass.
Yeah, he looked either like a sailor, a member of the Merchant Marine, or somebody that had, been in fucking jail. But men, when we've lost all the men in the business, now they look like a bunch of simpering little twits with vaginas that need powdering on a regular basis, because they are. I used to be the fucking pussy. Now I feel like a big bully standing next to most of the fucking guys in the business. Let's start talking about this. Have you ever, Brian, seen a billionaire prison raped? And I'm not talking about Jeffrey Epstein.
I have not, no. And there's dispute whether he was actually a billionaire, but
well, we're not talking about him anyway. It happened this past week. All Elite Wrestling announced they had signed our little dog Pockets to a contract. And this is something that they were actually bragging about. I don't know where to start. Because for one thing, when you're not that well versed in a particular, even though you might be a great businessman in other fields of endeavor, when you're not that well versed in one specific thing that you might be diversifying yourself into, you're supposed to hire people that know something about that field or experts in that field and can guide you until you get your footing, right? The people that poor old Tony Khan, I'm going to have to start calling him poor old Tony now, that poor old Tony Khan has surrounded himself with, actually thought that it was a good idea, not only to spend his money, but spend, from what I'm hearing on a number of these people, about 5 times as much as they get paid by anybody else. Not because they're worth it, but because they're friends, I guess. There's no rhyme or reason to this. This is becoming a modern day version of Gordon Scazzari. And I'm sorry to have to say this, but the first thing I said to Tony Khan, I'm not allowed to say a lot of what we talked about because I signed a piece of paper that I wouldn't. I don't know if it's been over a year, maybe the statute of limitations have run out. A lot of this is public knowledge by now anyway. But the first thing I said to Tony Khan was, I don't want a job from you, so I'll be the only one to be telling you the truth. And the prophecy has come true. I also, who wouldn't be excited, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, for all the people, he hates All Elite Wrestling. He wants All Elite. I was excited, yes, that a billionaire was going to start a wrestling promotion and put it on fucking Turner Television. I was excited about that for about 5 or 10 minutes until I heard who he was going into business with. And then I knew what was going to happen, and the prophecy has come true. Everything that I figured, based on the fact that for whatever reason, this guy who has been successful in other worlds, who has his family has a ton of money, he has a ton of money, everybody's got a ton of money. He's been a fan of wrestling for years and years and years. He said this to me, and I've read this, and I've had people tell me this to back it up. He's read the Wrestling Observer. Maybe that's where he's gone wrong over the past few years, since Uncle Dave's dementia has come to the forefront. He's still good on facts and history, but his opinion has taken a sharp turn south. I would have thought that someone like that would have by now realized what is going on around him, that he has placed his faith and hooked his wagon to the cosplay wrestlers that are going to, no matter what, make sure that they get their friends, useless though they may be, a fucking job, a highly paid job, at the expense of everybody else in the wrestling business who needs an alternative to Vince McMahon, an alternative to the WWE, a viable, big budget, second promotion. Fuck all them. We're going to get our cute friends that want to cosplay wrestling a job, and we're going to drain this fucking guy, and we're not even going to fucking try to make it look good. That is apparently what's going on now. I don't know what the Young Bucks have to say, because they have both blocked me on Twitter. Both the Young Bucks, Matt Buck and Nick Buck. And a lot of people will say, Cornette, you're one to talk about blocking people on Twitter. I don't know. I have 160-something thousand followers, and I've blocked probably more than that on Twitter. But my blocking philosophy is this. If you're egregiously pro-Trump, pro-Republican, pro-conservative, pro-gun, pro-foolishness of that nature, you get blocked if you admit it to me in public. If you support Shitstain, the Archbishop of Talonberry, you get blocked. And if you support the cosplay wrestlers and this bullshit, you get blocked. But I don't block the cosplay wrestlers themselves because I want them to know exactly what I think about them, and I want them to know what I say about them because I want them to be apprised of the situation and know that everything that I say is true. And that's why they blocked me. That's why the Young Bucks blocked me, because their pussies need powdered on a more regular basis than any of these other pussies that need powdered. They are the most fragile little fucking young fucks I've ever seen. They get their feelings hurt. They can't stand it when I tell the truth because it's the truth. And I'm the only one that they hear it from. Everybody else wants a job or a payoff out of them or out of Tony Khan, but I have principles. That's why first thing I told him was I don't want a fucking job. I didn't realize until a few minutes into the conversation that he was going to give these other people a job. Then I was like, oh, fuck, maybe I could have saved the wrestling business. But the Young Bucks blocked me on Twitter, but they did say, well, we'd burn our money before we'd line that carny's pockets. Like, now I'm a carny. The only one in this whole fucking equation that's telling the truth that I'm the carny.
Shock jock.
And I'm a shock jock. They would be shocked if they saw what was in my jock, but nevertheless. And we would burn our money. First of all, you broke dick dogs, it's not your money. It's another guy's money that you're fucking draining off of him with his blood to give your fucking little friends and your little playhouse, your little tree house, you little fucking play wrestlers a job on his money that he and his family worked for. And there's one TMZ wannabe, and why you'd want to be anything related to TMZ, I have no idea, but some TMZ wannabe actually tweeted me over the weekend. Start out with serious question. And then proceeded to ask, shouldn't there be different rules for different promotions? Because after all, Fuckwit Championship Wrestling in Idaho or whatever fucking mud show did that bullshit with poor old Mance Warner, who I used to like. Fuckwit Championship Wrestling has invisible brothers and their fans love it. And when I fucking basically told him to piss off and who the fuck are you, then he got all fucking mad because I just tried to ask you a serious question to get your mindset, and you replied to me in such a demeaning manner because you asked me a serious question about whether there ought to be an invisible tag team, you fucking bearded fuck. He looks like, I'll tell you this, the guy looks like Joey Ryan, except he looks like Joey Ryan if Joey Ryan was really deep down happy to be Joey Ryan. He's got that goofy smile on his face with the beard and the pubic hair and everything else, but he looks like he's really happy to be a fucking no-talent dick. Whereas Ryan, you can tell deep down he's got that look. He's like, yeah, fuck, I have to do this to make a living. But anyway, I've come to the conclusion that it's not even the goofy fans' fault, because all the goofy cosplay wrestling fans will on Twitter, oh, you're an old man, you don't like fun. Wrestling's supposed to be silly. There is a corollary here. There's evidence here of a connection. It's not the fans' fault as much as it is the wrestlers' fault. They can't get over doing it right. They don't have the talent to do this appropriately. So they tell everybody, it's okay to have an invisible man in a match. It's okay. Wrestling is a big joke. It's okay to have fun and laugh at us, because that way the gullible fucks that like them think that it's okay to like shit like that, and then they can get over. In the process, it makes the entire rest of the wrestling business look stupid and foolish and et cetera. But, they don't care because it's not them. They don't have the testicles or the guts or the principles or the standards or just the pride and integrity of a guy like Harley Race, who sometimes put the business in front of his business. It's just all about, oh, can we get over and have people cheer at us? And oh, golly, if Jim Cornette says something bad about us on Twitter, we're going to block him, and then we'll block all of his fans because they're telling the truth, and somebody's going to figure out that we ought to be wrestling 9-year-old grade school kids because that's how tough we are. We can only beat 9-year-old grade school kids because we're big pussies, and we need our pussies powdered on a regular fucking basis. It's the same thing with the Republican Trump suckers. The wrestlers tell these gullible, simple-minded cretins It's okay to have invisible men. It's okay to hit people over the head with dildos in the matches and have dance routines and have my little dog pockets, play kicking people in the shins and the fucking painted yellow and all this other shit. It's okay. And so the fans believe, well, they're wrestlers. They ought to know. It's the same thing that Trump and the Republic fucks are doing with their gullible sapsuckers. The media tells the truth about Trump. The Washington Post, the New York Times, NBC News, major magazines. Fake news. No, don't believe it. And because they want to think that somehow this is the right way to go about things, they believe him because they're idiots and they want to believe it and they want to like this fucking clown. They want to like these fucking young fucks. They want to like Kenny Olivier and his fucking drama. So it's the same thing. The conspiracy theorists used to, if you said, well, they got the aliens at Area 51 and, you know, fucking Ted Cruz's father was on the grassy knoll and Hillary Clinton runs a fucking pedophile ring out of a pizza place in the Bronx. Used to, if you said shit like that in public, people would look at you like you had steaming turds hanging out of your mouth and somebody would be keeping an eye on you, hopefully members of local law enforcement. But now the president of the United States retweets this 4chan, 8chan, fuck you chan shit and gives it credibility because people, well, the president, if he says it, it must be true. It's the same fucking thing.
You know, Jim, to go back to something you said earlier, certainly there are elements of Gordon Scazzari, but if you've seen any of these pictures of Tony Khan at whatever, the upfronts or whatever, wherever he is with these guys, and you've seen that look on his face, I think there's also an element of Tom Casati in there. The whole, like, I want to pay these guys to go on vacation.
Oh,
with
my
me.
God.
I want to pay these guys to hang out. Let's be friends.
The headbangers enjoyed Bermuda, by the way. But you know, and I hate, Tony Khan has never said a crossword to me, and we've never had a crossword, and he just, I hate to knock him, but at some point, Tony, you're going to have to take fucking control of your own situation here and realize that you're being ill-served by these fucking clown show play wrestlers and getting their friends jobs. There's talent out there that you could be signing or buying away from other people. Probably anybody but Vince would be more than happy to fucking deal with you for less than you're paying some of these fucking independent fucking shysters and outlaw mud show fucking freaks. And you could buy talent. But it's the same fucking thing. Tell people it's okay, and because you're in a spot, because you play something on television, they think it's okay. Whether it be the wrestlers say, oh, everything's okay. Well, you're wrestlers, you should know. And nobody has any respect. Not in that. It may be Cody. Maybe, but if Cody had some respect for the fucking business, I've got to say this out loud now. Even though everything he's done's been great, been a model of pro wrestling, but if he had any respect for the business, he wouldn't be hanging around the two little grade schoolers and a fucking, you know, a fucking Tony Award winner because they're fucking mentally deficient. But now to use this guy's money on they're short the bearded lady and they would have the whole carnival. That's what somebody said on Twitter. And it's the same thing with the Trump fucks because they're equally gullible groups of people. Conspiracy theorists, media is fake news, the racists. You didn't used to be able to say shit like that out in public, but now it's okay because the president's doing it. So now not only, but he's stirring them up to go fucking do something about it. Because when you have a group of simple-minded people who believe bullshit just because it's told to them and they want to believe it, and they're mad at the smart, intelligent people like the Democrats and everybody else in the fucking news who's telling them daily what's going on. They're mad at the smart people for being smart. They're mad at me for being right. They're mad at smart people for being smart. So they know we're going to believe the stupid guy because the president, he says it. They've been vindicated. We're not really losers. It's the Mexicans' fault. No, you're just fucking losers. If the status of your life is affected by some poor Mexican family that's fucking got across the border some kind of way, and the guy is working at a goddamn food processing plant for half the money they'll pay any white people because they can get away with it, and the kids are going to fucking school and not bothering anybody, then no, if that's negatively affected your life, that means you're a fucking loser, pal. Loser. The gun nuts. Here comes Trump. Here comes the fucking Republicans. And here comes the NRA to blame video games and no prayer in schools. And that's what the gun nuts and the fucking religious fanatics want to believe. Because we can't forget the religious. As we mentioned, they're always here when you're talking about a gullible group of people that are easily swayed and convinced of things. The ICE raid. Some people saw that as, yeah, Donald Trump's kicking all those alien invaders out of our country. No, what he did was he took probably the most vulnerable part of the fucking society in Mississippi, and he decided just because I can, I'm going to be a complete asshole to them. Did you see what he did to these people? Okay, so they're illegal immigrants. They don't have paperwork. Then they could have, if they didn't want to be pricks, they could have knocked on these people's doors and said, okay, the jig is up. We know you don't have papers. Here's what we need to do. No, instead, they send a bunch of fucking troops to look like they're being hard asses to the fucking plant and round up 600 and something of these people. They don't say anything to the fucking whoever the rich fuck is that owns the fucking business that's employing all these illegal people. They just round all these people up, and a lot of them have kids. They were in school, first day of school. Kids go home. There's nobody to let them in the house. There's no adults. Kids are crying. Now these people have no job. They're still here. They didn't deport them. They didn't commit any fucking crime except not having papers, and some of them have been here for 10 fucking years and paying taxes. Every time they buy something, they're paying sales tax. Their kids are in school. They've got a job. Some of them own a house. Now I saw on the news that some people, if they do get deported, are going to have to figure out a way to sell their fucking house. And their kids have never been to Mexico. Maybe they don't even speak Spanish. What they're doing also, by the way, is traumatizing children, so they're raising a future generation of Hispanic fucking serial killers who are mad at the United States government and want to get even because they've ruined their childhoods and ruined their parents' lives and traumatized them. So I'm sure that'll come back to haunt them in 20 years or so. Fucking fuckwits. But it was a publicity stunt, not a raid. It was a publicity stunt to convince the rednecks, the rubes, and the suckers that old Donald Trump's a law and order president and ruin these people's lives to do it. It's an easy fix if they wanted to. If you're in this country and you ain't got any paperwork, somebody needs to go knock on the door, because these people didn't commit any crimes. They didn't have a criminal record. They weren't chased down under a bridge. They weren't running for the police. They showed up to go to work for, did I mention, much less than they were paying the white people because they knew they could get away with it. So all you do is knock on a door. Okay, have you got a job? Good. Got any criminal record? No, good. Kids in school? Good. You paying some taxes? Good. Okay, let's get you some paperwork. You're going to have to pay a fine. And stay clean. We're going to keep an eye on you. Done. You know who they ought to be keeping an eye on? Did you hear about this? I think it was the guy in Dayton. There have been so many fucking mass shootings over the last 2 weeks. It's impossible to keep. Even Joe Biden can't keep them straight. Everybody said he's senile because he mistook Parkland for Sandy Hook. Why wouldn't you? Tons of kids shot for no reason in fucking schools. Happens all the time. Everywhere in the world, right? Oh, I forgot, just here. But the fucking guy in Dayton, 20 years old, 21 years old, not only legally owned an assault rifle or whatever the fuck they are, but it was legally modified where it held 100 rounds. So that's why he was able to kill fucking however many people in fucking 30 seconds. His mother had called the cops twice. Hey, my son is not on his medication. When he doesn't take his antidepressants, he gets very volatile and is aggressive with people. And he owns some assault rifles that I'm really worried about. Did you hear this?
No.
And he owns assault rifles I'm really worried about. And they had come not only once, but twice, and done a check on the guy and taken the guns away for a couple of weeks, and then somehow gave them back to him twice. And then his mother, the quote was, well, he's been taking his medicine and he was doing better. The fuck in the world are we all thinking? I know what some people are thinking. Some people are rightfully, like me, thinking that the National Rifle Association and these hashtag 2A fucking morons and all this goddamn constitutional right bullshit, all these people should be rounded up and put under the fucking bridge somewhere and out of polite society so we get something done. That's what some people are thinking. Instead of fucking keeping an eye on the goddamn mentally ill 20-year-old with automatic assault rifles that ain't taking his medication and his mother's worried about him, that's the guy. They ought to be going around to his house every shift. 6 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and 10 at night. We ought to be driving by his house. They're going out and fucking with the poor Mexican guy that came here 10 years ago, got a job, hadn't committed any crime, got some kids in school, and is paying his fucking bills. Him, he's the one they want to fuck with. Fuck you. Fucking morons. And you know what they do here in Kentucky? When they seize guns, I'm telling you folks around the world, I know that your heads are exploding right now, in my international fans. In Kentucky, when they seize guns committed in crimes, you know what they do with them? Once a year, they have a special sale, and they invite a bunch of licensed gun dealers to come in, and they buy the fucking guns they have seized in crimes. Guess what happens to those guns? The gun dealers turn around and sell them to people again, and guess where those cops find them again? More crime scenes. You fucking idiots. You fucking morons. Fix the gun. Everybody is talking about this goddamn bull. Ban assault rifles and more background checks. Well, yeah, that would be something. They're not going to do that anyway because the National Rifle Association pays the Republicans not to do anything about it. However, that's a drop in the bucket. Here's how this could be simple. It's real easy. Jim Cornette's going to fix everything for you again, folks. We don't even have to come up with our own gun laws and rules. Let's just take the ones from England or Australia or New Zealand or Canada or Scotland. Let's just stick with the English-speaking countries. No reason to make anybody nervous or jumpy by going to any of them countries where they don't speak English, and this shit don't happen either. Let's just stick with the English-speaking countries, the ones with skin tones similar to us, that speak the same words, just sometimes not in the same order, as we do. Any of those where this doesn't happen either, England, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Scotland, have I left out any? Norway, Switzerland, have I left out any? Well, they don't speak English. White English-speaking countries, is there any more of them?
Australia,
I said that.
Oh.
Anyway, just do that. Just take their law. What's their law? Working for you? Okay, here we go. That's our law. Pick the one you like. They all work because there's something instead of what we got, which is nothing. Then, once you have adopted that law, then you say, okay, everybody gets something that shoots 6 shots. You want a small rifle, you want a fucking handgun, if it's not automatic, whatever the fuck. Everybody can get one of those if they pass the fucking tests under these other laws, but we're going to buy back and melt down all this bullshit because that's why we can't have nice things, kids, because you can't fucking deal with it. It's gotten out of hand. It's a public safety menace, and nobody needs fucking assault rifles. Nobody needs multiple guns at all. How many guns you going to... Does somebody really think they're going to play the fucking Davy Crockett part at the Alamo if somebody's breaking into their house? How many guns do you need to defend your family? How many different guns? How many are you keeping loaded and ready in case the goddamn zombie apocalypse takes place? You fucking dweebs, you dipshits, you morons. Buy them back and melt them down, and after a period of years, not only would the good guys not be able to get guns, but the bad guys wouldn't be able to get guns either because there wouldn't be that many guns. That's the way it works everywhere else. We just have, unfortunately, a 200-year suck hind tit period where we've been stupid for long enough and we gave everybody every kind of gun ever manufactured and ever created and as many of them as they want and all the bullets they want. They sell bullets at Walmart. Not video. Now they're removing the violent video game displays, but they're still selling bullets and bulletproof backpacks at Walmart for your kids to go to school. That's, ladies and gentlemen, around the world, where the United States of America is. When you send your kids to school, they got to have a bulletproof backpack. Fuck you. Fuck anybody that looks like you if you think that's acceptable. You fucking morons. And not in America, because we got the Second Amendment. Yes, because here's another thing that we're fucking stupid about. Our founding fathers had some good ideas, and many of them were complete assholes. Have you watched the fucking pioneer edition of The Men Who Built America on the History Channel? Andrew Jackson was a real piece of shit. Andrew Jackson committed genocide of the Indian nation, and basically, not only that, burned Indian women and children alive in their teepees. He was a piece of shit. And so were a lot of the other ones. So let's take their good ideas, much as Vince McMahon used to do with Shit Stain. Take their few good ideas, keep those, and filter out the rest. Among them would be the Second Amendment. Since none of this shit was even invented back when they wrote it, and it's not what the Second Amendment means anyway, because there's no well-regulated militia in a bunch of fucking corn-pwned, corn-fed hillbillies stockpiling guns. So let's just tear that up and adjust it to fit the real world that we live in. Is that a fucking mind-blowing concept? You can't debate these people if their heads are on Mars, because they will say, well, it's a God-given right. First of all, there's no fucking God. It's the 21st fucking century. People are dying. So get your head out of your ass. If you want to have a hobby and you believe in that shit, that's fine, but this is real. Secondly, for fuck's sake, just because there is a God, if there is in your mind, his name is not on the fucking Constitution. I have not read in between John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, John Cameron Swayze, whoever else signed the fucking Constitution, is God's name there? Did he sign it, Brian?
No, he did not.
Not even. Jesus didn't even sign it for him. Like one of those things where you sign it and you initial it because the other guy, the boss, ain't there. He did. Jesus did not even initial the Constitution, which takes the religion out of the whole fucking thing. So engage with reality, folks. There's no such thing as a God-given right, and God didn't sign the Constitution. Men made it up in a prehistoric era, and we can fucking fix it. We have numerous times. We've amended everything, as I've mentioned before. So there is no place in the year 2019, ladies and gentlemen, for invisible men, whether they live in a wrestling ring or in the sky. If you're going to fucking kill the wrestling business, at least if it has to turn into this in order to survive, at least let the wrestling business die with some honor instead of sodomizing the corpse on the way out. But right now in the United States of America, real people are dying, kids and women and old people, and we won't do anything about it because we're a country full of stupid people that believe in stupid things. Not all of us. The cult members are cool. I know what's going on, but now we cannot deny that as much as we are immersed in and submerged and surrounded by a bunch of stupid people in the wrestling business, all the stupid people have been allowed to come to light in the real world also. They have been given license by the Republicans making fucking excuses for this fucking idiot, by Trump himself, who holds a position that most times people think, well, the president says it, carries some weight. They're all telling you a bunch of bullshit to cover up for the real reason. Trump don't want to not get reelected because then he'll go to prison. So he wants to get reelected. And he knows that his fucking gullible sucker base is heavily religious, the abortion thing, and heavily gun because they want to shoot all the Mexicans because he's the one that's told them to do it. So he don't want to fucking blow these people's bubble by telling them the truth. He don't want to have anything done. The Republicans, they're more wrapped up in keeping control of everything than they are in actually having exposed the fact that the leader of their party and the leader of the free world is a malignant narcissist, an incompetent buffoon, an ignorant asshole, a piece of shit, and a goddamn criminal. So they're hiding that in plain sight. They're not going to do anything about it. So the hopefully 6 out of 10 of us that can grab our ass with both hands on the first try, that can find our way home at night, that understand the difference between light and dark, those complicated mental exercises, we need to be able to take these fucking people at the ballot box and overwhelm them and send them back to the fringes and the submerge them back in the cracks and crevices from which they came. And smart needs to take over again. I know it's a fucking revolutionary idea, but maybe let's do more of the smart stuff and less of the stupid stuff. And we can start, as I've mentioned before many times, if you don't want people to call you stupid, don't do stupid shit. Well, if you don't want people to call you stupid in wrestling, don't wrestle the fucking Invisible Man. If you don't want people to call you stupid in wrestling, don't pay 5 times what anybody else pays fucking people that aren't worth a half of that. And if you don't want people to call you a stupid fucking country full of stupid fucking people, then everybody get together and show that there's more of us than there is of them and fix our fucking gun laws and get this goddamn lunatic out of the White House and restore some integrity or at least some sanity to the fucking government in this country before it's too late and everybody thinks this is acceptable. They've already poisoned the wrestling business. Stupid is good. Don't make stupid is good the fucking motto of the United States of America any more than it already is. Because they're all the same. If you see invisible people, you're all the same. Nuts. Why do I try? Why do I try, Brian?
I don't know. I really don't.
Anyway, next week we'll come back and try again. Maybe I'll learn y'all something. Actually, and here's the bad thing is I'm preaching to the choir because everybody that I'm talking to already knows this to be the truth. It's just that there's no way to reach the other side because they start with, it's the same thing. You try to reason with the other side, whether they start with, but it's our God-given right, or God would be mad, or what about them Mexicans, or, well, there's an invisible brother team and the fans there just love it. You can't reason with irrational people. Help me.
And by the way, for the record, it's his dad's money. He's not a billionaire. His dad's a billionaire.
Well, I bet she's got more in his checking account than you and me, though, to be honest with you.
But how much of it was, how much of it was...
I don't know where it came from.
My money was hard earned.
What the fuck? My little dog pocket.
But you see, you presume in what you say that it wasn't his idea. You presume that he's been talked into this, he's been swindled by whoever, as opposed to he's going to these shows. He may actually enjoy pockets and say, you know what? I want this guy on my show. I want the ding-dongs. Make me ding-dongs. I want ding-dongs.
But all the things he said in public, some things he said the same thing to me in private. He's a sports statistician. He wanted wins and losses to matter. He said that Turner wanted a sports-based presentation. That we're going to bring professional wrestling back to the people. And this is the exact antithesis, the opposite, the anathema of it's anything but. Why would you go out and say we're going to give you chocolate and we're going to talk about all this chocolate we're going to give you for 6 months and then show up with fucking vanilla or strawberry? It seems like it would have been the story straight off the bat. I don't know why I'm so conflicted now. I don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep on the story because now it's a mission. It may cause me to have a stroke, but I'm going to watch this fucking show until either they get it right, which in that case you would see a number of executive vice presidents being fired and on the unemployment line, or until they fucking depart this mortal coil.
Well,
one or the other.
Hold on. Two things on that note, Jim. One, we should probably remind everyone in a second what's going on with the drive-thru this Monday. But two, if you're willing to watch them to that extent, is there anything else we can get you to watch and review here on the air?
No, actually, because now this is a mission. I'm going to either see if they will smarten up as they go along and whether they can do it in a limited period of time that they're going to have, or whether it's going to be the spectacular train crash at the bottom of the ravine.
Well, now, you being the inventor or co-inventor of the 5-star rating system, originally the 4-star rating system, have you developed any sort of new rating system to determine a successful AEW event or match, or one that is substandard?
Well, actually, I think I'm going to have to I think I'm going to have to work on that. I'm probably going to have to hook a blood pressure cuff up to my arm and keep it applied throughout the entire program. And anytime that my blood pressure is normal or under, that means that they're actually doing something that should be seen on a professional wrestling program. Anytime that my blood pressure is above normal, that means that they got more of their cosplay friends, whether it be my little dog Pockets or, whatever. I don't know what I'm supposed to call some of the other ones anymore. I don't want to appear racist, or sexist or phobic of some description. And then it probably, I guess if I have a stroke and die, that means that's when they finally got so bad that they got kicked off the air.
You want to have a stroke? Think about the idea that in 20 years of Cauliflower Alley, you'll have Pockets and Marco Stunt walking around.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. I don't even think we mentioned they signed the grade school kid. They're going to get him killed. I think we said that last week. Anyway. All right. Well, I'm about ready to bleed again.
Drive-through.
Oh, the drive-through. One more time, folks. We're going to get on the bus this weekend because I'm going to be in Charlotte. So we're going to have a fine bus trip for you on Monday, and then I will be back with regular programming because I ain't leaving the fucking house. There you go.
All right.
Did we get everything else?
I think we got everything else. Raycon, buyraycon.com/JCE.
And one more time, buyraycon.com/JCE. Save some money. And tune in next week for more adventures. Until then, for Brian, I'm Jim. I'm still sick. So long, everybody.